Romans, friends, countrymen, I am Jessica D'Onofrio, class of 1995. I'm a morning show reporter here at ABC7 Chicago. I've been here for 8 years. I'm usually on the other side of this, interviewing people, but today my wonderful photographer, John Rivers, is going to do the interviewing for me. So John, take it away.
How old were you when you wanted to be in this industry?
How old was I when I wanted to be in this industry? Well, I didn't know I wanted to be in local news when I was in high school, that's for sure. I was on the theater and drama track. I was at Piven, the Piven Theater Workshop in Evanston, and doing that in my extracurricular time and also in shows at Latin. But halfway through my college career is when I decided I wanted to do local news. My father had a very good friend who's a photographer at WGN News, and he had offered to get me an internship at WGN. And I always kind of brushed it aside during college, and then one day I said, you know what, that sounds really interesting. And so my dad's friend arranged the whole internship, and I went to WGN every single day, spent a summer there, and every single morning I went in there, I knew that that's exactly what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So I tried to figure out, what do I need to do from here on out to make that happen? So it was halfway through my college career when I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in local news.
How did you first get into the career in local news?
So the internship started the process, and then I applied to the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern, which is a very difficult program to get into, as an admissions lady was very, very specific to tell me about, because she had heard about my theater and drama background, and she said, well, you know, you're going to have a tough time. There are all these kids who have written for their college paper, and they've had 2 or 3 internships at television stations, and they have this score on the test. So I wrote down, like a good journalist, everything that this woman said to me on the phone, and I went down and checked off each one of those. I wrote for my college paper. I had 2 internships, different internships, and, you know, I got good scores on my tests. So that is what I found that I needed to do to get to Medill, get that experience. And then once you're out of Medill, you go, oh my gosh, I have to get a job in TV news. So I drove myself from city to city around Chicago and brought my resume tape into news directors. And fortunately, one news director hired me in Peoria, Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, and that's where I started my career back in 2001. That's a long time ago.
What was the progression of your career?
So the progression of my career, I started in Peoria, Bloomington, Normal. I was there for about 2 years, and then I went on to Indianapolis, spent about 2 years in Indy, and that was a lot of fun covering racing and politics, and mostly general assignment is what I cover. So I can cover education, like I said, and a lot of the bad news you hear, unfortunately. After Indy, I went to Orlando for 5.5 years, and if you're familiar with the Casey Anthony story, that was my story out there from the night it happened. I didn't cover the trial. I moved on mid-Casey Anthony to Chicago. And I started in Chicago in 2010, so I've been at ABC7 for, in August it'll be 8 years.
What are the things you enjoy most about the job?
Oh, well, this, look, right now I'm covering a story. Unfortunately, it's a stabbing on the Blue Line train over here at Racine and Van Buren. But aside from the sad news that I cover, there are good stories that come out of local news. There are very inspirational stories and people you get to meet that you wouldn't necessarily get to meet if you didn't do this. So there are people who are producers, and that's a wonderful job, but they are mostly tied to their computers and their desks, and they're inside. I get to be outside. I get to meet people. I get to be in the middle of everything. I get to it's not so much fun when you're in a rainstorm or if there's some kind of hurricane and you're in Florida. But if you are a thrill seeker, if you like to get out, this is definitely the kind of job that will keep your adrenaline going. And it's extremely deadline oriented. So I'm never bored. I'm never sitting around twiddling my thumbs.
What are the challenges you experienced and how did you overcome them?
What challenges? I think nervousness is maybe a challenge. I mean, everybody when they're starting out in the business is definitely nervous. They're trying to say the right things. We're always trying to not get sued. This is a very important. It's important work that we do. You want to get everything right. You want to get the facts right. You want to make sure that that you're fair, and that can be daunting. And as a young journalist, you're trying to figure that out, and the nervousness of being in front of a camera and having all these people watch you. So, I think that a lot of overcoming all of that comes with experience. So, you start in small markets and you work out the kinks, and eventually you become better and better and better, more relaxed in front of the camera and in front of people. And you just know you've covered enough stories to know how to be fair, who to talk to, who not to talk to. So I think it comes with just letting yourself get the experience, and just being a really smart worker with common sense. I think that's a huge thing in our business. If you've got good common sense, you'll do well, and you'll overcome a lot of challenges.
Was there any part in your experience at Latin that inspired or influenced you to do what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of theater at Latin, and Ann Hardigan was one of my mentors there, and she made me feel special and comfortable on stage. And I think I always knew that someday I was going to be in some kind of show at the end of the day, whether it was going to be on stage or who knows where. And I look at this job, and it dawned on me at a certain point in time, not at the beginning, that I am in a show every day, several shows a day, and it's just, I think, what was in my blood, and I caught that bug at Latin, and I think Ann Hardigan had a huge role in that, and of course Piven, the Piven Theater Workshop in Evanston too.
What about you and your life now might be surprised at your Latin class?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm still friends with so many of my Latin classmates, class of 1995, and years behind me and ahead of me. So I think there's not a lot that you guys don't know about me if you know me and you've known me for a long time. Boy, I don't know if I can say anything to surprise you. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I've got an 8-month-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old son. And so when I'm done here at ABC7, I go home to my second full-time job. So I have, which is a wonderful job, by the way. So, I juggle so many things at once, and I'm trying to figure out the balance.
And for the wrap-up question, what's next for you? What are you working on now and beyond?
Okay, what's next for me? Well, when you start in journalism and this broadcast track, you're always wondering, okay, what's the next station and the next station and the next station? So I did that for a while, and this is home for me. I was born and raised in Chicago, went to Latin, so this is home. This is where I plan to stay. So I'm not sitting around making my next resume tape, and I'm not sitting around looking for where I'm going to go next. ABC7 is my home. Chicago's my home. If anything, what I'm working on next is figuring out how to become a better journalist every single day, a better mom every single day. And if I can figure the balance of both of those things out, then I think I'm pretty successful there. And so that was the wrap-up question. So I guess I'm going to take it back from John, and I'm supposed to say Happy Latin Day, and of course, go Romans.